Hello and welcome to week 7 of Race and Ethnicity. Super excited for you guys for this chapter. Again, we are studying some really tough stuff. This week, we're really focusing on race and economics. Okay, and so as I've again talked about many times in this class, the idea of race was constructed so that we could have a lower class workforce. There is no biological basis for the race. Europeans wanted to have a very clearly defined who is in the lower class and who gets to be access to the upper classes. So again, just because you were white doesn't mean you have privilege, but being white means that you have access to privilege. So are there more poor whites than there are poor minorities? Yes, absolutely. But you are also more likely to be stuck in the lower classes if you are a minority than if you are white, because if you are white, you actually have a chance to get out. Whereas institutional discrimination and prejudice and laws have historically kept all minorities down. Okay? So this book is going to be going through the economics, some of the economic policies in the United States, through the New Deal, through the 1940s, the Industrial Movement, and it really points out the institutional racism that all of these little projects only benefited white people, for example, okay? So the first thing you guys are going to talk about is President Roosevelt's anti-poverty programs. Again, this just benefited white people. You're going to talk about how institutional racism has created an income gap between whites and non-whites. And again, the biggest income gap has to do with home ownership. But non-whites have historically been denied access to home ownership because of mortgage discrimination. Okay, so if you want to, shrink the wealth gap between whites and non-whites, one of the best ways you can do that is to enable African Americans, for example, to get access to buy their house. Because if they can buy their house, then they can start building capital. Okay, so the biggest disparity between whites and African Americans is simply home ownership. Okay, we're going to be talking about again this idea that most poor Americans are white. However, because of that minorities were restricted to the lower classes for centuries, they often got stuck in the lower class. And when you guys study social class, you find out that whatever social class you were born into, it's very hard to get out of that social class. And so whatever your social class you're born into, you're most likely to stay in that social class. So again, minorities got stuck in this culture of poverty for so long, okay? Why does racial discrimination persist in today's job market? Okay, again, you have all these hundreds of years of prejudice discrimination. People will discriminate based upon somebody's name. For example, they have done some studies and they do some fake applications, and they'll put one application's name as Emily and one applicant's name is Latasha, and Emily gets the call back 8 times to 1. So who gets the call back, Mr. Jones or Mr. Rodriguez? Okay, so you guys might not see so clearly what racism looks like, but again, it's just at these most basic institutional levels of the hiring practices and our mortgage practices, for example. This is where real discrimination lies in modern times. People might not be as overtly racist, but we are subtle. And it's just, you can see that in the hiring practices. Okay, again, I am always talking about the welfare system because you guys hear about this as a stereotype, blah, 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 so-and-so on welfare, whole groups of people on welfare. Guys, the way welfare works is this. Rich people don't want poor people to have a revolution, so they throw them breadcrumbs. Rich people love welfare because welfare keeps the poor people from revolting and taking the money from the rich. So again, who does the welfare system actually work for? Because you can't really get ahead on welfare, and you really can't survive very well on welfare, but it's enough breadcrumbs to keep people from revolting. And if you look at all of human history, it's always these class revolutions. For example, the Revolutionary War in America, it was really a middle class overthrowing the upper class. Thomas Jefferson and George Washington got together and they overthrew the Europeans, the upper class. Then they took the upper class for themselves and then made sure women and minorities stayed oppressed by denying them liberty in our Constitution. And in that way, the middle class was able to take a better social location and then make sure they restrict everybody else so they could maintain their power. And again, this is the idea of where white privilege comes from. Whites in power created a social system that denied access to minorities, okay? And again, it's all about economics. Races were created for economic purposes, not because there's a difference between white and black people, but white males wanted to maintain power over groups of people, and they wanted to subjugate them into the lower classes, and they did not want them to get out. So that's what you guys are talking about this week. So again, you need to read your most amazing book. So read chapter 4 in your book. That's the first thing you're going to do. And then here's the PowerPoint for your chapter 4. Then you're going to watch these 2 videos, Assignment, Economic Inequalities, which is this. So you're going to watch both of these videos. And then you're going to choose 8 things from the first TED Talk and 17 things from the Aspen lecture, like you guys did on a previous assignment. Okay, and then after you make your list, you're going to write 200-word overall reflection, just about a paragraph of, how these videos impacted you, okay? So again, this week, make sure you guys read chapter 4, read through your PowerPoint here, watch the 2 videos, complete the assignment, and then make sure you guys have completed Inquisitive for your chapter 4. And then we have gotten a pretty good start on our literature review paper, guys, but start looking at that literature review project and seeing what's going on. Email me with any questions, and thank you again so much. Have a great day.